Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here, and as we enter 2021, a lot of people are hoping that things go a little bit more smoothly than they did in 2020. And there's absolutely good reason to feel positive going into this new year, but at the same time, there are still some major concerns and things we need to think about and prepare for the upcoming year. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the 3 biggest issues that Canadians are going to be facing when it comes to their money in this new year. And after we do a deep dive on exactly what these issues are, remember to stay tuned to the end of the video where we'll be going over what you can do to prepare so that these big issues will impact you and your family less. So now let's take a look at the first issue that Canadians are going to be facing this year when it comes to their money, and that is the end of all of Canada's recovery benefits. For so many people, these benefits, starting off with the CERB and transitioning to this host of benefits around the CRB, it's been such a vital lifeline for people who are just struggling to make ends meet during this pandemic. And in this survey that was just released by CIBC, 18% of Canadians say that their main goal is simply just to keep up with the bills and get by, and that they don't really even have a chance to think about other financial concerns because they're just struggling on a day-to-day basis to be able to survive. But unfortunately, these benefits that are just helping so many people who are struggling to get by, unfortunately, they're going to be ending sooner than many people might think. If you're somebody who's been receiving the CRB since the very first period that you could apply for this, your final payment will be applied for on March 29th. You'll probably remember that the CRB is broken up into 26 2-week periods, for which you're able to apply for only 13 periods of. But if you haven't applied for every single period, you can actually keep applying for this benefit all the way up until September 2021, as long as you don't go over that maximum of 13 periods applied for. While this March 29th end date for people who have been on the benefit since the beginning is still 3 months away, I think it's something we need to start thinking about right now. Both the Canadian government and individual Canadians need to start thinking about how they're going to transition to a time where this benefit is no longer available. Now, there is some precedent for benefits being extended, right? You'll remember way back when CERB was just starting out and it was first ending, that first initial period, they were able to extend the CERB benefits twice before they sort of bridged it over to the CRB. However, I think it's far less likely that they'll actually be able to extend the CRB, and that's mainly because the benefit was already designed to carry us all the way until September 2021. So for those who won't be able to receive benefits after March 29th, it's very likely that there won't be any benefits available at all for you. Now, there are some things you can do to get ready and to set yourself up so this transition will go more smoothly for you. But before we get into that, the second thing that Canadians are going to need to look out for in 2021 is just how expensive it's becoming to live in Canada. Now, it's no secret that in many parts of the country, the cost of living for the average Canadian has consistently gone up year over year. And in the very same CIBC survey that was just released, we can see that 60% of Canadians are concerned about inflation or the rising cost of goods in 2021. Inflation is what we use to describe how the money that we have today can actually buy less than it could before. This is either due to the costs of goods and services going up or the value of our money going down. And right now we're actually seeing signs that both of these things are happening and that they may continue to happen in 2021. And one of the areas that we see a huge increase in the cost of living is in groceries for the average Canadian family. And here we see it reported saying that families may spend almost $700 more on groceries in 2021 than they did in 2020. And at the very same time, the Bank of Canada is trying to increase inflation in Canada through something they call their quantitative easing program. And this just means that they're trying to make it less expensive to borrow money so that people are more incentivized to go out and spend more money and help the economy grow. Now, while this quantitative easing program is something that could potentially help create more jobs and grow the Canadian economy, it also artificially grows things like stocks and real estate because it's now cheaper to borrow money in order to invest in these sorts of assets. And while this is definitely a good thing for people who have stocks and who have real estate, it does have the potential to make life a little bit more expensive for the average Canadian. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can personally protect your money from losing its value and losing its purchasing power. But before we do, we're going to talk about the thing that Canadians say is the number one issue and concern they have entering 2021. And that number one concern is paying off debt, with 20% of Canadians saying that this is their top financial priority going into 2021, and it's something that they're most concerned about being able to do. And this makes sense. There are so many Canadians who are struggling with all different types of debt. And we've actually seen the entirety of Canada's debt top $2 trillion, and that's as of November 30th, 2020. If we exclude the debt that people owe on their mortgages, this works out to the average Canadian owing $23,000. But what I find really interesting is that this is coming at the exact same time that we're reporting the highest savings rate in all of Canada's history. And we've seen the amount of personal deposits into individual bank accounts go up dramatically, and the difference between what we would have expected before the pandemic and now where we are after is equal to $90 billion in extra cash in Canadians' pockets. However, this increase in savings hasn't been for all Canadians, as we've seen most of these savings rates increase in people who have a mid-income level to a high-income level. Whereas many lower-income Canadians were more heavily affected by job layoffs and closures due to the pandemic, people at that mid-income to high-income level didn't see as much of that, and as a result were able to save a whole heck of a lot more this year. But if you're not in this position and you've had to take on more debt over the course of this year and you haven't been able to save as much as you would have liked, this could put you in a pretty tricky situation. But while each of these three things are major concerns for Canadians in the year ahead, there are ways that you can set yourself up to be more prepared for them so that you feel less of an impact. And while these aren't catch-all 100% solutions, they are at least something that you can think about and to see how you can apply it to your individual situation. If you're somebody who's concerned about CRB ending in March, you can think about doing something that I recommended way back in October, and that's potentially taking the CRB benefit only once a month instead of twice a month in order to sort of extend the amount of time that you're able to receive at least some money. Now, this will be most beneficial for people who don't think that their prospects for getting a job come March are very good. Now, I recognize how difficult it could be for many people to live only receiving one of these benefits per month instead of two, but if it's between that and going off of the benefit entirely and not having a plan for any sort of work, it could be beneficial to draw out the amount of time that you can receive at least a little bit of help. When it comes to the constantly increasing cost of living in Canada, there are a couple different things you can do. And the one that I most recommend is trying to save as much money as you possibly can and start investing it as soon as possible. Now, this is challenging for many people who are just trying to live paycheck to paycheck and make ends meet, but any small amount of money you can save and invest can help sort of protect you against this increased cost of living. Whether you agree with it or not, Canada's current policies aim to increase the value of these sorts of investments. And as the cost of living rises, as more and more goods and services cost more, your money's sort of protected because it's growing alongside of the growth in these areas. Now, if investing something you've never done before, I have a guide on how you can open up the best investment account, and that's a TFSA self-directed investing account. So a video on how to do that is in the description, along with a link to Wealthsimple, which is one of my favorite online investment brokerages. I also have a video on the best ways that you can reduce your personal cost of living to sort of counteract the increasing overall cost of living in Canada. And that sort of goes hand in hand with the other major concern, which is paying down debt. These same videos talk about how you can save more to be able to pay down this debt, but if you're somebody who has a whole lot of high interest debt, like maybe a credit card or something like that, it could be a good time right now to look into consolidating this debt at a lower interest rate to reduce your monthly payments. One positive of the Bank of Canada's quantitative easing program is that interest rates are super low right now, so you might be able to borrow some money to pay off this higher interest debt and then pay it all on this lower interest debt in the form of a line of credit or something like that. And again, these solutions won't 100% solve every little problem, but it is something that you can start thinking about to make your life a little bit easier for the next year. And I'd love for you to let me know down in the comments, did I miss anything? Are there other major concerns that you're dealing with that I haven't touched on here? I sort of use my comment section as a way to understand what people are going through. So if you have anything that you want to say and you want your voice to be heard, make sure to leave a comment down there. And of course, if you haven't already done so, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell bell, because I'm coming out with updates like this all the time, whether it be about the Canadian benefits and how they're changing on a month-to-month basis, or just tips and tricks like this to help you and your family live a more financially stable future. If any of that sounds good to you, make sure to hit those buttons down there. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.